Hi class, in this video we're going to go over topic 5, elasticity. So this topic is very math intensive, so make sure you have a calculator or Excel ready, okay? All right, so let's get started. So elasticity, the word elastic means how flexible you are. So basically elasticity just measures how much our consumers or business respond to different condition changes. So first definition, so elasticity is a measurement of how responsiveness one variable is to the change of the other variable. So the most common elasticity you will see is called the price elasticity of demand. It has a very simple formula. It just says the percentage change. By the way, the little triangle here, that's change. So percentage change in quantity divided by the percentage change in price. And that's your price elasticity for demand. So for price elasticity for demand, we just want to see that how much will our quantity change whenever the price changes. So let's suppose price increase by maybe 10%, and then quantity will go down by, I say 20%, and that's a 2, right? So that will be our elasticity for demand. So just want to see, if price changes, how much our quantity demand will change by response. So again, another definition, so the measurement of how responsiveness our quantity demanded is to the price change. Now for this percentage change formula, let me write on this here. So for percentage change formula, there are two ways to do it. One way is to use the new number minus the old number divided by the old number, and that's your percentage change. Now this is the most common way to find percentage change formula. So on most of the problems on your homework and quizzes, you're going to follow this formula. So use the new number minus the old number divided by the old number, and that will give you percentage change. The other format is called the midpoint method. There are some questions on your homework that require midpoint method. It will specifically tell you that use midpoint method. So for midpoint method, your percentage change equal to the difference between the 2 points divided by the average between the 2 points. So basically, you're gonna have, let's say, let's say quantity 1 minus quantity 2 over quantity 1 plus quantity 2 divided by 2. So that's the difference on top, and on the bottom is our average. Now, the benefit of using the midpoint method is that we don't have to know which one is new and which one is old, because they all coming in the same difference and same average, so it wouldn't be any difference between the two. So, but if you know which one's new, which one's old, use the first formula. So it's new minus old divided by old. All right. So let's look at the example here. So our quantity originally was 20, so this would be our Q1, and then change to 25. This will be Q2. Price originally was 10, so this is P1. And then change to $9, this will be P2. So looking for how much is our elasticity for demand. So you're gonna do it separately. So first find out what is the percentage change in quantity. So the new number 25 minus the old number 20 divided by the old number 20, that's a 25% change. And then for price, new number 9 minus old number 10 and divided by old number 10 times 100% is a 10% change. And then last step, use your quantity difference, so which was a 25% change, divided by the price change, which will be a 10% change. So the answer should be a 2.5. Okay. Yeah, guys, there's a typo here. This is not a minus 25%. That should be just a minus 2.5. All right. So now let me show you the midpoint formula. So for midpoint formula is very similar. The only difference is, again, is how you find a percentage change in quantity and prices. So it's a Q2 minus Q1, that's the difference on top, divided by Q2 plus Q1 divided by 2, that's the average on the bottom. Okay, so we're going to use the same numbers. So this is Q1, this is Q2, this is P1, and this is P2. So Q2 minus Q1, so 25 minus 20, divided by 25 plus 20 divided by 2. and that should give you 22.2%. And then 9 minus 10, so new minus old, divided by 9 plus 10 over 2, and it's 10.5%. And then last step again, use your percentage changing quantity divided by percentage changing price. So again, guys, this is a typo. That should be a minus 2.1. Not a percentage. Your elasticity is just a number, not a percentage. Okay. So so numbers are different, depends on which method you use. So make sure be very careful, because in the question, it will tell you to use the Maypoint method. So read the question carefully. Let me show you guys how to do this in Excel. Because if you try to use this on the calculator, make sure to do it step by step, because otherwise you will get it wrong. Okay. So if you guys never used Excel before, Excel is like a giant calculator. It does everything for you. So all the calculation for you. Q2, P1, P2. All right, our Q1 was 20. Q2 was 25. P1 was 10. P2 was 9. All right, so let me make it. Oh, not that. I want this bigger. All right, so first, percentage change in quantity. Now let's do the new minus old method. So this equals to new number, which is 25, minus old number, and divided by the old number. There. That's your percentage change. Okay, so by default, the system will show you decimals. Just do a right click for my cell and then change to percentage. Now, percentage change in price. This is new number. 9. Well, don't forget the parentheses. So 9 minus 10 and divided by 10. There. So again, right click for my cells, and then let's do a percentage. All right, so that's your new minus old method. And then for the Maypoint method, I'm gonna do the difference between the two. So 25 minus 20 divided by the average between the two. So 25 to 20. Enter. And then do the same thing for the bottom one for price. So 9 minus 10. And then divided by the average. All right, and then last step, gonna change this two into percentage. All right, so last step, elasticity. So it's a percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change in price. And then we want this one to be decimal, percentage. And then same thing for the one over there. Okay, so that's how I do it on Excel. Now you do see a number answer differently, depends on which method you use. So again, read the question carefully to know which method the question is asking to do. Okay. Now for our elasticity, is always negative, and the reason why it's always negative because your demand curve is downward sloping. So you can think this elasticity like a slope for the demand curve, because demand curve is always going down. Therefore, elasticity for price is always negative. Now later on, I'm going to learn other elasticities, and those might be positive or negative. But for the demand price elasticity for demand, so the percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price, this one is always negative. Okay, so because it's always negative, so one thing we like to do that whenever you finish this price elasticity for demand, take absolute value, so it become positive. Okay, so just avoid negative numbers, take absolute value, become positive. Now let me show you the next one. So a couple more definitions. Again, we're gonna take always absolute value whenever you finish your elasticity for demand, and only for elasticity for demand. Now later on, we're gonna learn the income elasticity for demand, the cross price elasticity for demand. For those, do not take absolute value, because for those, we care about the signage. But for the price elasticity for demand, the one you just saw, this one, whenever you finish, because it's always negative, so take absolute values, it become positive. And then for this, if it's more than 1, if your elasticity is more than 1, that's called elastic. That means consumers were very sensitive about the price change. So when price change by just a little bit, quantity change by a lot, right? So quantity is very responsive to price change. That's called elastic. And then if it's negative, it's called inelastic. That means consumers, we don't care about price change that much. So when price change by a lot, and then our quantity change only by a little bit, okay? Well, yeah, only change by a little bit. So that's an inelastic demand. And then for inelastic, just means if your elasticity is equal to 1, where the quantity change is equal to price change, that's called inelastic. Now, however, on the same demand curve, when you have a linear demand curve, on the same demand curve, depends on where you are, your elasticity is very different, okay? So let's suppose we go from this point, let's call this point A to point B. Now let's find out how much is our elasticity for demand. So our Q1 will be at point A, that will be 1. Q2 will be 2. P1, so P1 at point A, that's a 9. And then P2 at point B, that's an 8. Okay, now guys, let me show you a trick. The Excel formula we just did, don't erase this, because we're going to use this formula. All we're going to change is number in the middle. Okay, so we said Q1 was 1, Q2 was 2, and then P1 was 9, and P2 was 8. There, the answer is there. Okay, so it's very simple. Once you put in the numbers in there, and once you put the formulas in there, the numbers will pop, the answer will pop out automatically. Okay, so that's your original method. So elasticity is 9. Now make sure, remember, take absolute value, so it's positive. And then if you use the midpoint method, take absolute value 2, the answer should be 5.7. Okay, so again, depends on which formula you use, the answer is different. So make sure to read the question carefully to know which formula the question is asking for. Okay, all right. Now let's suppose we do somewhere on the bottom. So let's say we'll go from this point A to this point B. So if that's the case, our Q1 will be 8, Q2 will be 9. P1 will be 2, P2 will be 1. Okay, so Q1 is 8, Q2 is 9, P1 is 2, P2 is 1. All right, so let's change the numbers on our formula here. So Q1 was 8, Q2 was 9. Oh, no, this is 8. And then P1 was 2, P2 was 1. There, see the answer change automatically, right? So our elasticity, again, take absolute value, so just 0.3 using original method. If you're using the midpoint method, that'd be a 0.2, okay? All right, let's continue. I think I noticed there's a typo in the PowerPoint. Let me see. So the typo, I mean, the PowerPoint says 9 minus 8 over 8. Was that right? 9 minus 8 over 8, okay. And then 2 minus 1 over, oh, yeah. Wait, right? So 2 minus 1 over 2, so that's right. How come their answer is slightly different? Theirs is 0.25, but mine was, oh, okay, this is the rounding difference. Hold on. Because there is doing 2 decimals, I'm doing 1 decimal, okay? So let me do it for myself. Show me 2 decimals. there. See, this is 0.25. Okay. All right. So another thing to be careful about, always keeping answers 2 decimals. Let me change this one too. So whenever we do elasticities, always keep your answer 2 decimals. All right, that's 0.18. Okay, so on the top portion demand curve, that's when we had a very high elasticity. Remember, this is like a 9.1 elasticity, and then at the bottom portion demand curve was very low. That was a 0.25 elasticity. So on the same demand curve, the top portion is called elastic. So whenever the price is high, consumers care about the price change. So when price changes a little bit, we change our demand for it. But at the bottom portion demand curve, when the good is very cheap, we don't care about it. When the price changes, we barely change our behavior. So imagine this. Imagine the price for gasoline, right? So for gasoline, right? Let's suppose right now gasoline price is at 10 cents per gallon. Well, that's very, very cheap. Now imagine next week the price doubled to 20 cents per gallon. That's still very cheap. So that wouldn't change our behavior by that much. So we might still buy the same amount of gasoline. But imagine the price changes from $2 per gallon to $4 per gallon. So a higher price doubled. Now, when this happens, we do care about the price change, and I'm going to buy less gasoline. So that's called elastic demand. So when the price is low, we don't care about the price change. That's called inelastic. When the price is high, we are very sensitive to price change, and that's called elastic demand. And then somewhere in the middle, you have unilastic. Okay, so top portion is elastic, bottom portion is inelastic, and then somewhere in the middle, you have unilastic. All right, now we can also use our elasticity to determine what the total revenue is for the companies. Now, total revenue is your price times quantity. Now, this is how much money the companies are collecting from customers. Now, guys, remember this. The goal for a company is to maximize profit, not maximize revenue. Because max revenue doesn't mean anything. You only want to maximize profit. And the difference between revenue and profit is that revenue is your price times quantity. That's how much money you're collecting from customers. Profit is how much money you can keep. So for profit, you're going to use your revenue minus cost. That's your profit. That's how much your take-home money is. Okay, so the goal for every company is to maximize our profit. Now, for revenues, we can use our elasticity to determine when and where the company revenue is maximized. Okay, so if your demand is currently at a very elastic portion, now for elastic portion, that means our consumers, we care about the price change. So when you change the price by just a little bit, so a little price change, and then our quantities will change by a lot because our consumers care about the price change, right? So when you see the price decrease there, you're going to change your quantity by a lot. So in that case, companies should lower the price to increase total revenue. Now, if vice versa, if you decide to increase price, the total revenue will go down. Okay, so when the demand is elastic, so at a very high price level, companies should lower price to increase total revenue, and an increase price to decrease total revenue. Now, vice versa, if the demand is very inelastic, that means consumers we don't care about the price change at all. So if you change your price by a lot, we only change our quantity by a little bit. So if that's the case, then companies should increase price to increase our total revenue. Now, if they decrease price, then total revenue goes down. Okay, so let me write a new page. So when demand is elastic, companies should increase price to increase total revenue. I'm sorry, decrease price to increase total revenue, because when price goes down, our quantity changes more. Now, when demand is inelastic, that means consumers, we don't care about the price change. In that case, companies should increase price to increase total revenue. Now, notice I haven't said anything about unilastic, right? So whenever the demand is unilastic, that means elasticity of demand equal to 1, then do not change price, because your total revenue is already maximized. Okay, so price no change. All right. So again, at unit elastic, total revenue is maximized. Don't change anything. Okay. So there are a couple determinants for elasticity to determine how much your elasticity for demand is. Now, the first rule is that the more substitute you have available, the higher the elasticity for demand is. Because if you have a more number of substitute, then the price changes. I go buy something else, right? So, for example, imagine that suppose right now there's a price change between what's a good example? Let's say a broccoli. So broccoli versus soy milk. Oh, go back. So broccoli versus soy milk. So if this happens, if let's suppose both price increase by 20%, then what will happen, right? Consumers, we might still buy the broccoli because there's not that many substitute compared to broccoli, right? Besides broccoli, what else, what other green vegetable you can buy? It's not that many. But for soy milk, this we have more number of choices. So besides soy milk, we can buy regular milk, right? We can buy almond milk. We can buy other kind of dairy product. So there are more number of substitutes for soy milk. So if you see both good increase by 20%, broccoli will be more like inelastic change. The consumers are not very flexible. Soy milk here will be elastic. So consumers are very flexible. We see a price change, we go buy something else. Now, the second determinant for elasticity is the portion of income. So just how expensive it is. The more expensive this good is, the higher the elasticity for demand is, because consumers are very sensitive to price change. But if the good is very, very cheap, then who cares, right? So again, imagine the price for milk. If milk price doubled, it goes from what, $2 per carton to $4. Well, that's fine, because how much milk do you drink every month? Not that much, right? And mostly you drink maybe like a carton per week. So you're spending $2 more per week. So you don't change your behavior by that much. But imagine something else changes. Imagine is the price of rent doubled. Well, we're spending a big portion of our consumer income on rent. So when rent double in prices, we look for other alternatives, right? Looking for a cheaper apartment. So the higher the portion the income is compared to the price level, the more responsiveness or the more sensitive, the more flexible consumer become. All right. Now the next determinant for elasticity is this good a necessity or luxury? Now for good, if a good is a necessity, that means this good has a very high elastic demand. So demand is more than one. Now this happens. Imagine the price of Caribbean cruise increases. Now cruise, right? Sure, we don't need that. You buy it when you have money, you don't have time to go on vacation. So whenever that price changes, consumers tend to be more flexible. We tend to buy something else. But if it's a necessity, so let's say running water at home, if this price changes, well, we don't have other options. That's a necessity we just have to have. So that has a very inelastic demand. Okay, so vacation elastic because we don't have to have it. Running water at home, that's inelastic demand. Guys, the whole thing about this elastic, inelastic, just to think about just how responsiveness, how flexible our consumers are. Now we're very flexible about our vacations. We don't have to take it, but we're not that flexible with our running waters. We just have to have it. That's an inelastic demand. Now, last one is just how much time do you have to adjust? So if the changes happens right away, we don't have time to adjust it. There will be a very inelastic demand that we still have to have it. But if the changes happen slowly, that we have time to respond in a longer time span, there will be an elastic demand. So let me give you an example. Let's suppose the price for gasoline changes. let's suppose right now gasoline is like $2.50 per gallon, right? Now let's suppose this price will double to $5. Now if it doubles, let's suppose the change is going to be the difference between 1 week and for the next 10 years. Now, if you know for sure the gasoline price will only be doubled, can't write it right. If you know for sure the gasoline price will only be doubled for next week, now would that change your behavior? Would you buy a new car in response? Maybe not, right? Because it's only going to happen for a week. I don't need a new car for a week because by next week price go down again. But if the changes happen for 10 years, would you buy a new car in the time span? Would you buy a new car in 10 years just to buy a more gas efficient car? Then maybe the answer is yes, right? So you have more time to respond, then you become more flexible. But if you have less time to respond, you are very less flexible. That's inelastic demand. Okay, so inelastic is less flexible, elastic is more flexible. All right, so the next section we look at our new elasticity. It's called a cross price elasticity. So for the cross price elasticity, let me give you the formula. So cross price elasticity is the percentage change in quantity for good A divided by the percentage change in the price for good B. So we're comparing two good A versus good B. Now, the reason why we look at this is because for some of the good, you learned this in the previous chapters on the demand and supply section, they're called complements and then substitute, right? So for sometimes the demand of one good might depend on the price of the other good. So cross price elasticity measures the effect of a change in the price of one product to the quantity demanded of another product. So cross price between two good over here. So for example, glove and scarves, right? So those two might be I don't know, are they complements? Do we buy them together, gloves and scarf? I guess so, right? Because when the weather is cold, you do buy them together, right? So they're complementary good. So for first, let's look at substitute. So for substitute, so good and service are replacement for one another. So pen and pencil, they're a substitute. Another example you can think of, like iPhones and Samsung Galaxy, that's substitute. Your PC and Mac, that's substitute. So the stuff that we don't buy both, we just buy one of them. That's called substitute. Okay. The formula for that looks very complex. You have all these numbers over here. So let me write it down, make it easier for you. Okay. So cross price elasticity. Now in your book is denoted as B versus A. So comparing two good. Okay. So we're gonna do the percentage change in quantity for good B over the percentage change in the price for good A. And then we still follow the same formula. So for quantity change, that will be Q2 minus Q1 over Q1, right? So new quantity minus old quantity divided by old quantity. But we're gonna put a B here, so you know this is for quantity B. So let's say this is our what do you call it? Let's say apple, right? So apple here. So price of apple, the quantity of apple on the top, and then divided by, now still same formula we used before, so P2 minus P1 over P1, right? So new price minus old price divided by old price, but this will be something else. Let's call this one orange. Okay, so that's the only difference we have. You still have the same Q1, Q2, P1, P2, but the only difference we have is that on the top of on top of the fraction is only for one good, let's say apple, and then on the bottom of the fraction is only for the other good, let's say orange. Okay, so make sure to keep those consistent. So one good on top, the other good on the bottom, and that will give you cross price elasticity. Now for cross price elasticity, this one we care about the signage. Okay, so if the cross price elasticity is where is this? If your cross price elasticity is negative, see, so price orange increase. Yeah, so this would be called substitute, right? So again, do not take absolute value. So if this is negative, that's a substitute. But if your cross price elasticity is positive, terrible handwriting. This is called complements because we buy them together. Wait, did I do this right? I'm gonna question myself now. Let me see. So let me think. So price increases. Sorry, guys, my mistake. This is reversed. And how can I learn when I'm messed up like this, right? So if this is positive, that's a substitute. If this is negative, my bad. Negative. This is a complement. Okay, so complement just means you buy them together, and the reason why that you have a negative elasticity means complements. So let's go back to this formula again. So we're gonna use the percentage change in quantity demanded for good B over the percentage change in the price for good A. So imagine the price for good A is increasing now, so positive increasing. So when that happens, good A getting more expensive, then we buy less good A, right? So quantity for good A will go down. So that's a decreasing. Now, if two good are complements, that means you buy them together. So if your quantity for A goes down, that means your quantity for B will go down as well. So positive on the bottom, negative on top, then you have a negative elasticity for complementary good. Now, on the other side, if it's substitute, so elasticity, so percentage change for quantity demanded for good B over percentage change for price for good A. Now, imagine again the price for good A increases. So good A is getting more expensive. Now, according to law of demand, when good A getting more expensive, so price for good A goes up. That means the quantity for good A will go down. That's your law of demand. Now, if two good are substitute good, that means we buy A, we don't buy B. We buy B, we don't buy A. So if you don't buy A anymore, you're gonna buy more of good B. So quantity demanded for good B will increase. So positive and positive, then this is positive. So therefore, this is substitute good. Okay, so negative cross price elasticity, that's complementary good. Positive cross price elasticity, that's a substitute good. And next one is our income elasticity for demand. So now we're comparing the quantity demanded, the change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in income. So this is another concept you guys learned in the previous chapters. Remember the difference between normal good and the inferior good, right? So normal good means when income goes up, you buy more. Inferior good means when income goes up, you buy less. So for this, elasticity measures how responsiveness demand is to a change in consumer income. So if your income elasticity is positive, that's normal good. If your income elasticity is negative, that's inferior good. And this is the formula for it. So it's your Q2 minus Q1 over Q1. The whole thing about time 100%, this will cancel out anyway, so I wouldn't worry about time 100%, okay? And then over, now we're going to replace price with income. So income 2, new income, minus income 1, old income, and then divided by old income. And that will give you your income elasticity for demand. So again, if this is positive, that's normal good. If this is negative, that means this is inferior good. All right, so last section is the price elasticity for supply. So everything we looked at before, we're looking at the quantity demanded for each elasticity. This is our quantity supplied for elasticity. Very similar to our price elasticity for demand. So this measures how much our quantity supplied will change whenever there's a change in price. So it's just your percentage change in quantity supplied over the percentage change in price. And you still have the same Q2 minus Q1 over Q1, and then this would be P2 minus P1 over P1. So just like before, nothing changes. The only thing you can replace with the QD with QS. Okay, so everything follows the same concept. All right, gonna skip all this. We don't have to talk about it. Now, for your price elasticity for supply is always positive, and the reason why, because your supply curve is always upward sloping, right? So you have a positive slope. That's why it's always positive. Okay. Now for demand curve, because it's always negative, you're always going down, so you have a negative price elasticity for demand. But for the price elasticity for supply, because supply curve is upward sloping, so it's always positive. And then similar concept is more than one is elastic, less than one is inelastic, equal to one is uninelastic. And then last concept for today, for supply, for supply, if you look at different time period between immediate, short run, and long run, your elasticity is very different. So in the short run, now short run means that in a very short span of time, that at least one input of production is fixed. So at least one variable in the production for the good it doesn't change. So for example, for most companies, the building they have, the building they occupied, that's a fixed space, right? So if you want to produce more of the good, you can hire more employees, but you cannot just have a bigger building by tomorrow. So that's a fixed variable in the short run, and that's called short term. But in the long term, everything becomes more flexible. So let's suppose that your company says we plan to increase our production in the next 5 years. Well, that's okay, because that gives us time to get a new building running, right? So that will be a long run. So for price elasticity for supply, the longer the time, the more elastic the supply become, the more flexible the supply become. So the longer time, so immediate, we're very inelastic, but in the long run, we're very elastic, more flexible. We can change according to condition changes. And if you look at the supply curves, ignore this demand curves, don't worry about those, okay? But the vertical supply curve, that's an immediate change. That means we cannot change at all. That our supply is fixed. We cannot go beyond that. But if you a short run, it's very somewhat steep supply curve. So we can still increase, but it's increasing slowly. But if it's long run, it's more flat. So for your supply curve, the more flat the supply curve is, the more elastic the supply become, and then the more steep the supply curve is, the more inelastic the supply is. Okay. All right. So guys, that's it for this chapter. Have any question? Let me know. All right. Good luck. Bye bye.